so close.
Show me what you
It's
got.
contact.
Come get it. I'm the GOAT, you're not. Come and get it. You can be my
Max
man.
Verstappen
Come and get it.
claims title number 3.
A phenomenal race, a phenomenal victory by George Russell against the run of play, taking 34-lap-old hard tyres and holding off a 7-time world champion to secure what he will look back on as his best victory in Formula One to date. He'll do well to improve on that in any of his future races. What an audacious strategic choice from both driver and team to take a desperately unexpected win. It was a Mercedes 1-2 again against the run of play. The threat from Lando Norris and from Max Verstappen simply never appeared. Welcome to your post-race show here on F1 TV with me, Will Buxton, with Haas Reserve and IndyCar superstar Pietro Fittipaldi, and with F1 strategist Ruth Buscombe. And Pietro, that was, I mean, it was totally unexpected for all of us, for everyone in the paddock. No one expected that result, nor a Grand Prix in which we had the top 6 cross the line in under 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was a beautiful race, you know, hard-fought race towards the end. You had 3 cars within a second there, basically at the end, fighting for the win. So for Formula One race, that's all you can ask for.
And Ruth, I know this is a race you will have loved. The strategist in you. So many permutations, so many questions coming into today, but no one expected anything like this.
Yeah, I mean, just bravo to that tyre whisperer, George Russell, that really, you know, you could hear on the radios, they were discussing whether or not they wanted to extend the stint, whether they wanted to stay out. They go, we've got 3 cars in our window, now we might as well crack on, and crack on they did. And his degradation was half. It was 0.05, field average was 0.1 on that hard. Guys, this is a phenomenal stint. And it's a good job it wasn't 45 laps, wasn't it? Because I don't think my heart could have taken watching that kind of Sector 2, Sector 3 battle anymore.
It's 2 weekends in a row, and my heart really can't take a final 10 laps like that. Let's take a look at what it does to the Drivers' Championship after that Grand Prix. Because although Max Verstappen didn't fight for the win, he has extended his championship lead by finishing 5th, 1 place ahead of Lando Norris. You see the positions down there. Oscar Piastri now 4th in the Drivers' Championship, ahead of Carlos Sainz. And look at that, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, 143, plays 141 in 6th and 7th, catching up to the back of Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri there with brilliant results for them today. Got to give a shout out to Alonso in P9 and Ocon in P10. Points for both of them today. I think we've got so much to talk about. We'll be lucky to get on to talking about them, but let's cover them off right at the top of the show. Right, guys, let's tap into this, Ruth, because Joey McMillan, senior race strategist for Mercedes, on the podium with the guys today. Randy Singh 1 week ago for McLaren. F1 2024 is so much about getting the strategy right when the top 4 teams are just this closely matched.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's marginal gains, and as you can see, the kind of the pace differences made such a difference. You know, I think Mercedes found themselves in a situation they weren't expecting with just how fast their car was. Obviously, they've never run that car in the dry.
Yeah.
The Friday pace was terrible. I don't think they'll be upset with us saying that, because they took that entire package off the car. Obviously, Saturday was, you know, kind of, they still weren't the fastest car on Saturday, but, you know, it was wet. It was completely different. And they went into today, and wow, that non-upgraded car was fast. And that meant that as the race unfolded, they reacted, which is what all great strategists do. And they realized they had a car that was faster. They realized they were in a position, after they covered off that undercut from Max Verstappen, that they could just keep going. And they had so much to gain and very little to lose by keeping going. And they, you know, were waiting for the times to drop off. And they never really did until about 5 laps towards the end, in which case there was absolutely no point boxing.
I've just had a note from the team which said that at the point they were thinking of boxing George for his second stop, they were pretty much covering off a P5 finish.
Yeah.
So they just thought, you know what, let's roll it. George thought, let's roll the dice. Team thought, we agree, let's roll the dice, let's go with it. But Pietro, he had to get himself into that position in the first place, made a stop on lap 10. And this move on Sergio Perez, one of the moves that really helped them decide that strategy in the end. This was so key to how his race played out.
Yeah, exit of La Source, going through a Rouge, getting that DRS and being able to overtake Checo was extremely important for his strategy to play out, to get that gap, get himself into the lead when everyone else stopped, and then manage from there. And as Ruth said, his tire deg was so much better than everybody else. That's why people ended up opting to doing that second stop, because they ended up falling off. And I was so surprised towards the end of the race that his traction, even with much older tires compared to Lewis, coming out of the last corner, out of La Source, that's what was keeping him alive and being able to defend.
We can actually take a look at that now, Pietro. From a racing driver's perspective, you're on the fresher tyres. You've led the entirety of this race. You suddenly see your teammate in front of you, who is on knackered old tyres, but is somehow pulling out these brilliant laps. How frustrating is this for Lewis Hamilton? As you say, no traction out of La Source, dropping back every time.
Because he had pace everywhere else, but then you get to the bus stop, and Lewis was actually braking a lot later, but he just couldn't get the traction out of the corner. And you need about a delta of, let's say, 5 to 6 tenths coming out of turn 1 to be able to overtake with DRS in a Rouge. And you'd always on the exit just falling between 6-7 tenths, and it wasn't enough to get the toe through a Rouge and make the overtake. And it was, for sure must have felt very frustrating.
Frustrating for Lewis Hamilton, absolutely brilliant from George Russell. Toto Wolff, we heard on the radio at the end of the race, calling him a tyre whisperer. I think a very, very accurate. Ariana Bravo's caught up with him.
Toto, huge congratulations. That one was tense to the very last minute, 1.1 seconds across the line between the top three. George, pulling a one-stop out the bag. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, at a certain stage we saw that it was P5 anyway. P5 with a one-stop, P5 with a two-stop, and then we just risked it.
And how did it feel when he came onto the radio and said, let's go for that one-stop? Was it something the team were considering, or was that a George call?
No, he said the tires feel still good, and we thought let's cover Norris and Verstappen, and then we didn't, and he made it last.
Over on the other side of the garage, a fantastic race by Lewis as well. I mean, covering everyone off, fantastic. How are you feeling about Lewis's race today?
Yeah, he did a great job, and it's unfortunate, but this is what it is.
Okay, good luck. Go enjoy the podium.
Okay, slightly harsh. Great stuff from Toto Wolff there, and we see the celebrations for George Russell, and he will take that, the emotion involved with that. What a day for him. Ruth, when you're on the pit wall and your driver is helping you to make the decision in that moment, do you ever have a situation where you're looking at the numbers and think, this just isn't possible? How much faith do you have to put in your driver that they can actually pull that off?
Well, yeah, you have to have, buy-in from a driver first off, because they're in the car, we have numbers, but they actually know how the car is feeling, which is why we often ask our drivers to update like a tyre rotary to give us that information. And then, you had to have kind of a threshold deg that you need to hit to get that low enough, which George, it was 0.05, and he hit the deg target in order to hit that crossover for the one stop. And then, back in the base here, it's not life limited. Up in the gallery, and we're just trying to work out whether or not he had to stop again. It's all just about the degradation. You can keep going around here. It's not like kind of yesteryear where you physically you don't have enough rubber on the track. You do. It's just a case of, are you going to get caught by the two stoppers? And it was so critical getting that overtake done at the time that he did, because it came down to seconds to Oscar Piastri that had, a car that was coming through much faster, but because he took a couple of extra laps to overtake the Ferrari, didn't quite get there in time despite kind of the last lap's fight. It was all tiny marginal gains and knife edge of doing that whilst, casually driving, 34 laps on one set of hards.
It's an incredible job from George. Lewis looked like he'd done an incredible job all the way through the day, holding off Charles Leclerc for the majority of the race after he took the lead early on. But then suddenly, out of nowhere, in that final stint, Piastri, he's firing it in, punching it in, takes the position, takes the final place on the podium, 1.1 seconds off the win at the end, so close between the top three. But Pietro, a couple of moments during today's Grand Prix that might have put Oscar a little closer up into the mix. Long stop for him, that second time, missed his marks.
Yeah, I saw him coming in hot. Obviously, he knew that he had that race win or at least a podium contention there. And as a driver, you come into the pits, you've been driving for, 20, 30 laps, and you come in with your heart rate racing, and all you want to do is have a fast pit stop, get back out on track. And sometimes you overshoot it, but you overshoot your marks by, 12 inches or something. And the pit stops are so fast that those few inches, it makes it a 2-second stop into a 4.5 seconds, and it's a crucial.
Yeah, that was it, 4.4 seconds in the end. And Ruth, from what you can see on the data trace from the race, how much did getting stuck behind Leclerc for those couple of laps cost Oscar?
I think the win today, to be honest, because, you know, I'd have to double check the numbers, but it looked like that long stop, it looked like McLaren were trying to box at the point that they would come out just in front of that Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, which it looked like that slow stop then meant they came out behind, and then obviously, you know, he did a phenomenal job overtaking, but the time it took, you know, him to overtake those laps was less than the 1.1 seconds it was at the end. Now, you know, it shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know, if my mum was my dad, let's not do the quote because, you know, it's before the watershed. But, you know, it's just marginal gains these days in F1, isn't it? You lose 1.1 seconds somewhere, that's a race win.
And this is the astonishing thing. The strategy today also employed by McLaren for Lando Norris. Your thoughts on that? Interesting that they left him out long on the first. And then similar to early in the season, didn't take advantage of that on the second stop, pitted him in reaction to Verstappen to cover that off rather than extending that second stop to give him the fresh tyres at the end. It's a play we've seen from McLaren before, and for Jolyon Palmer in commentary, surprised him as much today as those previous occasions we've seen it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the person that's kind of probably feels a bit sad is Lewis, that did that kind of classically on paper, you know, the standard strategy, and then that was why Mercedes were able to kind of take the risk with the second car. Yeah, I agree. I was a bit surprised that they didn't, you know, McLaren didn't follow suit and do the kind of the classic strategy with their kind of car that was towards the front as well. But yeah, I think they'll sit back and look at it today. I'm not sure after the race start whether or not that would have made the difference. I think he needed to pull off this phenomenal one stopper in order to be able to undercut the entire field for the win. So I think even with a kind of moving stops around, you needed something big today.
Yeah, Ruth brings up a brilliant point there, Pietro. The start for Lando Norris, he needed a good one. He didn't get it. He ran wide at La Source onto the gravel, losing 2-3 places in the mix. Is that where any chance of the win today from Lando disappeared? Any chance of him really competing at the front?
It's tough to say, but obviously the start, I would say, qualifying position, where you start on the grid, is extremely important. That's 20-30% of the result of the race. The other 20%, 30% is the race start. Because you can gain or lose so many positions on the start, and that kind of puts you into a certain strategy. So that first lap is extremely crucial in any race, in any series, because it puts you in a race strategy, and depending if you're ahead or behind, you know, it changes the story of your race.
Absolutely, it does. Ariana Bravo is been pretty busy today. She's managed to grab Zak Brown.
Zak, we are fresh off of watching the podium there. Oscar, absolutely mighty pace there. How are you reflecting on that one?
That was a pretty awesome race. Hats off to Mercedes. They great strategy. George did a fantastic job. It was pretty exciting there at the end. Fell a couple laps short. Also very impressive job by Max on mediums to hold off Lando. So overall good race. Closed the gap a little bit to Red Bull. Put a few more points on Ferrari and lost a few to Mercedes. So excited for the second half of the season.
Did you feel that podium was in there when you came into the race today? When I spoke to some of the drivers earlier, I spoke to both Lando and Oscar, and they said, yeah, and they were a bit worried about the Red Bulls, but actually it didn't seem like the concern was with them in the end.
Yeah, I think track position, as often is the case, is very important. So Oscar was fine once he got into some clean air. I think we spent a little bit too much time the first part of the race behind, so that probably ultimately cost us a bit. But yeah, I thought we might get both cars on the podium. I'm getting greedy now.
That's fine. Looking at Lando's race, do you think there was more that could have been achieved today? Was it a case of you should have pitted a little bit earlier, or do you think that you optimized what was possible?
Not sure yet. You know, ultimately we'll do a full debrief to see. I mean, it was so close there with the Ferrari and Max. So if we would have found him another second on the lap, then he would have been right in front of him. But we'll take a look. But I think everyone did a strong job.
And we're heading into the summer break now. This must be an encouraging way to see off the first half of the season.
Yeah, very excited for the second half.
Well done once again. Thank you so much, Zak.
Thank you.
Lovely stuff from Zak Brown. As he points out, they have gathered momentum and they have cut that gap back to Red Bull Racing in the fight for the Constructors' Championship. But Ruth, you brought up a brilliant point. Clean air. How pivotal was that to every driver's race out there today, ultimately being caught behind other drivers?
Yeah, exactly. With the, this is an easy overtake track, but as Pietro so wonderfully said, you do need about 6 or 7 tenths advantage, whether you get that from your own car pace, DRS, raw driving talent, or a tyre delta. You do need to be faster than the guy in front in order to be able to overtake him, which means that there's kind of 2 ways to make positions here. You either get track position by undercutting or whispering to your tyres so you can do one fewer stop than the majority of the other guys out there, or by building a tyre advantage, having a kind of 10 lap or so difference in tyres, which means that you've got that kind of 7 tenths to a second that you can overtake. So I think that's probably what they were trying to do by pushing into and doing balance stints to try to offset to look like they were racing the Mercedes at that point. Basically because the Mercedes are boxed to cover. But yeah, it's, it shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's so difficult these days because, especially when it comes down to such fine margins, you always feel like you could have done more as a strategist. Like even when you win, you'll sit back and go, oh, darn it, we could have done that better.
Talking about the lap delta, that is something which Max Verstappen, Pietro, has had for the last 2 seasons. Taken the fastest lap in qualifying, taken the grid penalty, roared through the field. It just didn't have that huge differential in pace today. Was that a surprise to you?
It was, because he did this last year, right? Didn't he get the grid penalty last year and then won the race?
And the year before.
And he won the race.
Yeah, both times.
So, at the grid, I was walking by and I was like, I think it'll happen the same as last year. He's going to come flying through the field.
We all did, mate. We all did.
They're always fast here, but it's the competitiveness between, I'd say, the top 3-4 teams. It's much closer than the previous seasons. And I think that's why we see the importance of strategy, because before, the pace of the car would kind of outdo whatever strategy you do. You're still going to be able to make gains, with how it was last year with Red Bull. But now it's so close that the strategy calls, getting clean air for tire deck. I think that was a big reason why George as well was able to maintain the tires. He did the undercut. Then he had much more clean air than everybody else. He was in the lead for so long, and clean air, less turbulence, and tires suffering less.
A P5 for Max Verstappen today, a P8 for Sergio Perez, but with the fastest lap, what's that done to the Constructors' Championship? As we heard from Zak Brown just moments ago, McLaren have increased their tally in relation to Red Bull Racing. And here is exactly where we sit in terms of the points. Red Bull Racing on 404, McLaren now on 361, so it's just 43 points. The gap, it was 51 at the start of the day, edging ever closer as we hit the summer break. Mercedes getting themselves well in the mix as well. 284 plays 340 for Ferrari. A couple more race weekends like they've had recently, and they'll be well up there. Ruth, it's now 4 races that Max Verstappen hasn't won on the bounce. Last time that happened was back in 2020, where he didn't have a car that was capable, really, of taking consistent race victories. How much work does Red Bull Racing need to do? And they can't do a lot because we're in shutdown. Factories are closed for the next 3 weeks.
Well, I think, he's done a great job. Like, let's be honest, it's not Max Verstappen that is the reason why they haven't won the last 4 races in a row. It just shows how tight it is. The Red Bull upgrade, it came, but it brought, something, I think it was about a tenth. The McLaren upgrade that they brought so effectively into that car, kind of leading up to their kind of string of race wins, was 4 times that. So, it's everything. It's not just the driver, it's not just your strategist, as much as we'd like it to be about us. It's about those performance upgrades, and that's why the second half of the season is going to be so critical, because it all counts. And there's been so many seasons where, historically, the Singapore upgrade, that last huge downforce upgrade that most teams bring, has topsy-turvy to the championship all over again.
Will one of the performance upgrades for Red Bull Racing be a new driver after the summer break? A question we will get onto in a moment. Ariana Bravo is talking to Christian Horner.
Christian, no one would have expected that race to unfold the way it did. How are you reflecting on that one?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think everybody was worried about front graining and concerned about the tyres, and so one stop was not on the prediction this morning. So well done to George for making that work. I thought Max drove a good race from 11th to 5th, finishing again ahead of his nearest championship rival, so extending his lead there. For Checo, obviously 2nd to 8th, but with fastest lap, we need to have a good look at that.
Staying on Checo for a moment, of course, it's not how he would have wanted the race to unfold. Are you able to see what happened there? I mean, I know you haven't had a chance to look at the data and really analyse things, but the drop back, of course, is not what anyone would have liked to have seen.
No, I mean, we need to go through it all and have a good look, but yeah, it was obviously we didn't want to go from second to eighth, as I'm sure Lando didn't want to go from fourth to sixth. You never want to go backwards.
I have to ask, because there's this ongoing narrative around Checo and his future, and lots of people were saying this race would be crunch time for him. Is that a feeling that is also present within the Red Bull camp? How much does today impact those sort of discussions, if there are any?
No, look, today won't impact anything. I think that with Checo, obviously we need both cars scoring. We can see McLaren have taken I think another 7 or 8 points out of us today in the constructors, and we need to stop that. We've got to bounce back after the summer break. So we need Checo up there. Yesterday was great in qualifying. Unfortunately, today hasn't quite worked out.
Thank you very much, Christian. Enjoy the summer break.
Thank you.
It doesn't bode well, those answers at the end, and good job to Ariana for asking the tough questions of Christian Horner. As he said, it won't make a difference to their ultimate decision-making, but they need 2 drivers in the mix. Checo falling from P2 on the grid to P8 today. Admittedly, some of that was down to strategy and having to make that long second stint work. But as we saw with George Russell, a long stint was doable. It certainly was doable in order to make up positions. So many question marks, Ruth and Pietro, are over the future of a driver. Pietro, let me ask you, if you're a driver under pressure in these moments, and you know coming into the weekends that the eyes of the world, the eyes of the media, the eyes of the team who are now talking openly about how much your performances are letting them down, is it ever truly possible to put that out of your mind at every moment that you're on track? Does it affect the ability that you have to give your maximum on track?
I think, you're lying if you're going to say, like, you don't see what people are saying and stuff. You're going to see it. I mean, you open your phone and you see the speculation and everything. But as a driver, I mean, the way I would approach it is just continue doing what I've been doing for the past 20 years of my life. I don't know how many seasons he's had in Formula One, but Checo has had great success. He's a great driver, in my opinion. So I would just take it as just keep doing whatever I need to do to maximize my performance. And the speculation and the pressure, I mean, it's part of the game. You're performing at the highest, level of motorsport in the world, and pressure is a privilege in a way. The more pressure means you're performing at a bigger stage. So I think that's the way I'd see it, and just keep hitting my marks, keep doing my job, and the rest, will lay itself out by itself.
Red Bull were expected to be the dominant force in the Belgian Grand Prix. They weren't in the end. Max Verstappen, P5, Sergio Perez, P8. Let's hear from both of them.
So Max started P11, ended up P5, making up plenty of ground. But how do you feel about that race and result?
I mean, the race itself was not too bad. It was just very difficult to pass. The first stint, stayed out of trouble, luckily, in the first few laps. Got into that DRS train and basically just stayed there. Then we tried to do a nice undercut, which I think worked quite well. But the cars we're all very similar in pace, and then it's just very difficult to move up. So I think from P11 we did a good job. I think looking at the championship, it was a positive day for me. Of course, you want more, but with our pace the last few races, it's not realistic to think that we can go from P11 all the way to the front again. Those days are behind, unfortunately. But we have plenty of things to analyze, over the break, and see if we can improve the car starting already in Zandvoort.
You touched on the break there. What's your mindset going into it, and also the pace displayed by McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari?
Well, luckily it's changing a little bit, so it's not that one particular team is constantly, taking points away. But we know that we have a bit of work to do. We want to do better, and we'll see what we can do.
Thanks, Max. Sergio, that looked like quite a tough race out there. Started P2, ended up P8. What's your take on today's race?
Yeah, it was a really bad race for us. It started well on the first stint, but then the second stint was really complicated with going onto the medium compound. That really hurt a lot, when I had to push and the degradation was just quite high. And we had to do quite a short stint, unfortunately, and that compromised, I think, the race time. But ultimately, we didn't have the pace today.
A bit of time off coming up now. There's been so much talk about your future, of course. How difficult is it dealing with all of that? And what's your mindset heading into this break?
Yeah, I've said it before. I don't think I will be responding anymore to any future speculation. I'm here with the team, fully committed. I think as a team we have a lot of stuff to focus on to get ourselves ready for this second half of the season. I think I've had enough of this speculation. I've said everything I had to, and so it's time to take a break and regroup with the team and then get back to it.
Thanks, Sergio.
So, Ruth, enough of the talk. Let's get into the numbers, into the figures when it comes to Sergio's weekend.
Yeah, so in terms of qualifying performance, his season average offset to Max Verstappen is 0.637%. That is similar to where Albon was, where Kvyat was, where Gasly was, when they lost that seat. And these are not bad drivers. We're talking about how great Albon is, how great Gasly is, both, Gasly winning races. It's just so difficult to keep up with Max Verstappen that, even if that driver isn't in a Red Bull, they're still a good Formula One driver by rights. And so it's just, it's so tough to see anyone, kind of sad. And he is actually right there on the strategy. They did help his teammate there.
Yeah.
They did that pincer to try to give Max the best possible chance to make it through the field and to make that kind of undercut work.
It's a shame, I think, for Checo, because I've known him a long time. I've known him since his GP2 days. He's a fierce competitor. He's a brilliant Formula One driver. Perhaps just Red Bull and the pressure that mounts up in that place. It's not a nurturing place. I know, Pietro, you were saying that Formula One, it's, you need a high level. You can't have excuses made for you. You need to bring out the best at all times. I completely agree with that. Does it have to be a nurturing environment? Not necessarily so, but yeah. It's a tough time for Sergio Perez. If we believe what we are hearing in the paddock, there is to be a meeting on Monday about Sergio's future. Daniel Ricciardo and Liam Lawson are both due to test in the coming days. The result of that may or may not influence Red Bull and their decision-making into the future. Right, let's talk Ferrari now, because they had been looking, obviously, hopefully, at fighting not just for the win today, but if they couldn't quite hold on to P1 from pole position, then certainly a podium. They just lost out. Ariana's with Fred Vasseur.
Fred, that was an intense battle out there, all across the top 10. How were you feeling after that one? How do you reflect on that race from Ferrari's perspective?
It's a mixed feeling, because I think in terms of performance all over the weekend that it was okay-ish, that on the wet yesterday with the first row or pole position at the end, but P2. And even today, I think that the pace was okay-ish, and we finish 10 seconds behind the winner. It's okay. That the main issue is that we are P4. But I think overall it's a good step for the team compared to Silverstone and so, and we are back into the fight.
We heard Charles on the radio saying that the pace was just disappointing today. Do you think that was the big element that held you guys back today? Or was there a strategy thing at play?
No,
as well?
strategy. I think we were all surprised with in one end with the very high deck on the medium and the very low deck on the hard. And I think that when you do the strategy before, you can't expect something like this. But okay, it's always much easier to redo the strategy after the race than before.
Of course. This is the final race now before the summer break. What is the... You're excited. What is the feeling within the camp as we head into the summer break? How do you reflect on things so far?
Well, so far, I think that if you compare with 12 months ago, we did a very good first part of the season with something like 60% more points this year than last year. That means that it's a good step. First also that it's the mega championship, probably the best we never had, with 4 teams fighting each weekend for podiums and wins, and this is good. And then I think everything is open for the last part of the season, because as soon as someone will be able to make a small step, even for 1 or 2 tenths, it will make a huge difference.
Well, we look forward to seeing the second half of the season unfold. But for now, have a lovely summer break, Fred.
I will. Thank you.
As if by magic, Carlos Sainz arrives at the desk. He's still looking over the race. What do you make of the race trace, Carlos?
A bit of a weird one, no?
Yeah, hard,
especially
medium,
for
hard.
me, that I took the risk to start on hard, which I was confident, but at the same time I knew it was a big risk for turn 1 and turn 5 here, but I felt this tire was going to give me more grip later in the race to extend, and it did. I had really strong pace from lap 15 onwards, and then feel like obviously with hindsight we didn't do an optimal one stop and we didn't do an optimal 2, and we were a bit stuck in no man's land at the end, but we will analyze now and see what we could have done better.
Did anyone genuinely believe when the day started that a one stop was truly possible?
I did. That's why I started on hard, and that's why I extended so much until lap 20. I knew I needed to get at least to lap 24, 26, and then at some point we backed off from it. I need to exactly analyze why and see what we could have done better there. But what is true also that the medium was a very weak tire, so you didn't want to do more than 15 laps on that tire. So if I would have needed to extend the hard, I would have needed to extend it until lap 30
lap
at least.
30, yeah. Tough, man, so tough. How positive is it though today that, I know you guys weren't expecting to have a great weekend, and yet the pace differential between all of the top 4 teams today appeared very, very close.
Very close, but for some reason we're still on the back end of that very close space, and every 10th counts. And now even if it's only 2-3 tenths between all cars, when those 2 or 3 tenths are not in your favor, you end up paying the price. That's why Charles went from pole to 4th, and I went from 7th, 6th. I was in front of Max and Lando at the start, but I somehow finished behind. So one way or another, the race always puts you more or less in your position, and especially 44 laps around Spa puts you more or less where the car is. And I feel like we have some homework to do for the second half of the season if we want to keep the fight with these guys.
I know we're going to have to let you go, but we've been talking about you all season long, obviously, since the start of the year. Where would you be going next year? Will we know over the summer break? Do you need the summer break to make your mind up, or have you already decided?
I really look forward to the summer break.
Because we won't be asking you about
exactly.
it. Yeah.
You guys need to understand, no? It's been a long first half of the season for me, also having to deal with, a season with Ferrari, and at the same time, all the questions and all the handling about my future. I think it's fair, no, to have taken and to take my time, to take the decision, because it's clear that every week everything changes. In each team that I'm potentially looking forward to competing next year, every week there's been changes, and in the end, I think I've been proving myself right that waiting and seeing how the team market developed was the right thing to do to end up choosing my final destination, no, and I feel like I'm going to take my time as much as I need, because time is proving me right that the longer it takes for me to decide, the more information I have to take the right decision.
And everything opened up.
Exactly.
Cool. Enjoy the break.
Thank
Take
you.
your time and chill out and
Thank you
rest,
very much.
relax with the family, mate. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well done, a great start for the season. Congrats. We will see you a little bit. Oh, you can leave wherever you want to, mate. Thanks, buddy. Carlos Sainz. Interesting. I think he's coming back to Oxfordshire. I mean, that still leaves 2 teams open, doesn't it? Williams and Alpine.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, he's a strategist. As we saw from there, he was completely correct. On that hard deck, he was doing a great job. JV's a strategist. I just think it's a match made in heaven. But, I'm always going to just bring strategy into everything.
He'd suit Blue. I reckon Williams would be a neat fit.
Just a strategist.
Pietro is staying absolutely stum on this.
Well, you got some insider info there.
Do you know something we don't? Because you're being very, very quiet on this.
You're very confident on that.
No, I just got a feeling. Yeah. I got a feeling. He likes the Cotswolds. He likes Oxfordshire. Right. Let's hear from your top 2. George Russell, Lewis Hamilton.
George, wow, that was an inspired strategy call. You won the race. You must be delighted.
Yeah, absolutely incredible race. The car was feeling really, really great, and we were back and forth with on the comms. Like, I think the one stop. Let's consider the one stop. Tires are good. And I got to be honest, I was rolling the dice a little bit, but suddenly I got them into a really nice window. I got in that groove, and when I was in the lead, there was just it was totally clean air ahead. There was no back markers, no one else around, and kind of felt like at one with the track, and it just really allowed me to get into such a great rhythm, almost like I was driving a simulator. And we couldn't have even dreamt of a 1-2 this morning.
Were you a bit nervy in those closing laps? Lewis closing down, obviously.
I was really relaxed. I don't know why. I was just saying before, in Brazil a few years ago for my first win, I was so nervous those last 15 laps when I had Lewis right behind me. But I felt really confident with myself, really confident with the car, and sort of accepted what will be. But there's no reason why we can't do this. And Lewis drove a really great race. So I want to just acknowledge that, and so proud to get that one too.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Hi, Lewis. Lewis, it looked like you were giving it absolutely everything there to get the win at the end. P2 for you at the end of it. How do you feel about that result?
Happy for the team.
Is there anything you would have done differently in hindsight with the strategy? George obviously going for the one stop. Was that an option for you?
Would have made my own strategy.
We're heading into the summer break now. First half of the season over. How do you reflect on that as a whole, and what's the mindset for the second half?
It's amazing for us to be fighting for wins, to get a 1-2 here up against such competitive teams like McLaren, who have been so quick, and Red Bull, who have been leading forever. It's really, really tremendous effort from everyone, and just have to huge congratulations to the team. We can go into the break now on a positive.
Thanks, Lewis.
You can feel for Lewis Hamilton today, I think, and you can really understand his reaction, because he did everything right in the Grand Prix, but never expected that he would need to overtake his teammate at the end, Ruth. Do you think that's a driver who hasn't quite yet been told that actually this decision was made really spur of the moment? It wasn't actually the plan, and we haven't done you out of a win. It's just George called it, and we ran with it as literally as a Hail Mary.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you saw Carlos here, joins, grabs this race trace out of my hand because he hasn't seen it. And that's the thing you have to remember, is that, like, it's so difficult for those guys out there. There's adrenaline, there's everything. They're casually driving around here. And I always say you can't really take anything that they say when they're in the car or in the pen before you've actually, be able to see the data personally. And like I say, they weren't planning on doing a one stop with George. No one's pretending that from George to Mercedes. It was kind of a gamble that they could take because George had less to lose. And it's just unfortunate, that I think you have to do the safe strategy with your guy at your front. It would have been silly for them to kind of have thrown away that lead. And as a team, ultimately they're trying to win a team competition. They maximise points by splitting strategy today. So yeah, I think once he sees it, it'll be fine.
Pietro, what a great end to this first half of the season for Mercedes. 3 wins in 4 Grand Prix. Absolutely superb job from them after a really tough start to the season once again, where they really weren't happy with the car.
Yeah, but they've been performing extremely well. Both George and Lewis both having wins this season. And I think I agree 100% with what Ruth said. I think because Lewis was having such a great race, he had it all to lose basically, because he was leading the race, had a great start, that they went for the safer or the smartest strategy at the time. Do the 2-stop, do a simple strategy. And because George had less to lose, let's take a bit of a risk here and let's gamble. I don't think anybody expected for him to be able to keep that pace towards the end. And, it went his way.
How great for us that they let them race to the flag.
Yeah, I thought that was very good. Yeah. I thought it was going to be some, team, but they let them
even
race.
On the last lap. I thought coming into the last lap they were going to be like just hold position. Nope. Brilliant. That's what you want to see, isn't it, in Formula One? 7 winners from the first 14 races, a different winner every other Grand Prix. What does the second half have in store? You can find out here on F1 TV when we come back after the summer break at Zandvoort. Always a party atmosphere on the beach for the Dutch Grand Prix. Here is where you will find everything in a few weeks' time. Your weekend warm-up coming your way on the 22nd of August. 21st is practice 1 and 2. The 23rd. The 24th is practice 3 and your pre-quali show. And on 25th is the race itself. 72 laps of the short, twisty, tricky Zandvoort track. Well, that is pretty much it from us here in Spa as George Russell continues to celebrate and gets interviewed by our lovely colleagues over there at Channel 4, Steve Jones and Mark Webber, who knows all about taking victories against the run of play, does old Mark Webber. Guys, what a brilliant first half of the season. Thank you so much for your insight and your input as always. It's a joy to have you guys along. Pietro, we wish you luck at St. Louis. It's the next one?
St. Louis, yeah, that's right.
Or St. Louis?
St. Louis, yeah.
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
I got to pronounce it right. St. Louis. Good luck, brother. We'll see you back very soon. Ruth, what an amazing addition to the team this year. We will see you back in Zandvoort. It's been such a joy, my friend. My thanks to the whole crew that you don't see behind the camera, especially Olivier here, who's at home this weekend here in Belgium. He's having a big night. He's showing everybody else. To our boys and girls back at base in Biggin Hill, to our commentary team, and most importantly, of course, to you at home. What an incredible season 2024 is shaping up to be here in Formula One. 7 winners, nothing taken for granted, no guarantees other than phenomenal action and phenomenal racing. We'll see you in Zandvoort.
Welcome to Zandvoort.
And we go racing in Zandvoort.
Driving in front of your home crowd is amazing.
Verstappen crosses the line to win 9 Grand Prix in a row.
Yes.